Hello, welcome to Saturday Soul. My name is Dr. Sidney Freeman Jr., and I am so excited that you are with us today. If you could you go to the chat and just say your name and where you are from? We're going to have an awesome program today, and we just want to know who's watching, and if you can, share this link with your friends. So if you're on Facebook, start a group party. If you're on YouTube, share the YouTube link with your friends. But we're going to have an awesome program for you today. I first would like to thank Kirk Nugent and Composition for their audio-visual services with us today. And we have a special guest that is going to share with us how we can advance the Black community through the political process. And we're looking forward to her presentation. So without further ado, let's go to our introduction of Senator Cherie Buckner Webb.
Cherie Buckner Webb is a fifth-generation Idahoan. Her family and other members of the small Black community in the state capital experienced multiple examples of racism. In 2010, she decided to run for office and defeated her primary and general election opponents and won the seat with 68% of the vote. In doing so, Buckner Webb became the first African-American state legislator. 2 years later, in 2012, Buckner Webb won the Idaho Senate seat and soon afterwards was named the Democratic Caucus chair. Buckner Webb has many interests outside of politics. She is a talented jazz, blues, and gospel vocalist. In 2004, she received the Idaho Excellence in Arts Award for her album, By His Grace. She worked tirelessly to create the Idaho Black History Museum, which is housed in the historic St. Paul Baptist Church, a church where her great-grandfather was the former pastor. This past June, Boise Mayor announced that a new park downtown would be named in her honor. Naming this park for Cherie Buckner Webb honors this trailblazing Boisean who, while making our community a better place, has inspired and empowered generations of Boiseans. Now everyone who visits this beautiful downtown park will hear her name and have the opportunity to learn about her legacy of service to Boise and the state of Idaho. The Liberation Movement is proud to present a Lifetime Service Award to international keynote speaker, state legislator and trainer, jazz, blues, and gospel vocalist, and Idaho's first African-American state senator, Cherie Buckner Webb.
All right. It goes without saying that you have dedicated your life to empowering and fighting for the citizens of Idaho, but in particular, blazing trails for Black people to follow. We recognize that it is not easy to be a first Black anything in Idaho, but particularly being the first Black state legislator. With that being said, on behalf of the Liberation Movement Board and Dr. Freeman LLC, I would like to present you with this Lifetime Service Award, and it reads, in appreciation for engaging, equipping, and empowering the Black community, Cherie Buckner Webb.
Well, my makeup is smeared now. Oh my goodness. What an honor.
I have a few more. I want to make sure we can give you your flowers.
Oh my goodness.
I want to share a quote from blackpast.org that shares a little about some of the challenges that she has experienced and persevered through in her life. quote, when she was 7 years old, the Ku Klux Klan burned a cross in her family's front yard because of her family's political activities. In spite of this atmosphere of discrimination and hostility, Buckner Webb's parents refused to give into scare tactics, and the family continued with the normal routines. Her mother even displayed the cross on their mantle to keep it as a visible reminder. Buckner Webb faced a particularly nasty campaign when she ran for her Idaho State Senate post. During the campaign, several of her lawn signs were defaced with racist slurs such as, quote, "Kill that N-word B," signed the KKK. In April 2012, Buckner Webb received a direct mailing from the Ku Klux Klan. The letter included a handwritten application to join the Ku Klux Klan, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, excuse me. The application asked for a $35 annual membership fee and for a written statement saying, "I am a Christian man or woman." Buckner Webb stated in an interview that she believed she was sent the application as a warning by the Klan of its power in the state. The KKK had at least 18 chapters across Idaho at that time. Buckner Webb refuses to be intimidated. Buckner Webb refuses to be intimidated, and supporters in her mostly white district elected her by a wide margin, end quote. Deuteronomy 4 verse 9 says, using the Message version of the Bible, "Just make sure you stay alert. Keep close over yourselves. Don't forget anything of what you've seen. Don't let your heart wander off. Stay vigilant. Stay vigilant as long as you live. Teach what you've seen and heard to your children and your grandchildren." And I wanted to bring that verse in because it is so important that we pass down these stories, the good and the bad. As we go through what we're going through in the state of Idaho with this push against critical race theory and just push against empowering people of color, it's so important to remember from where we've come. And your story has been such an inspiration to so many. And we know that the city of Boise is going to honor you. I think it's this upcoming week. And as it relates to a park, the downtown park is going to be named after her. But it's important that we as Black people, I think it's special when we support each other and acknowledge each other in the ways that we've impacted our community. So with that, just wanted to share that. Thank you so much for being a part of our program. And if you want to say anything, and then we'll shift to your presentation.
I'm just overwhelmed. I thought I was excited before we came on. Now I'm doubly excited. Have to cool it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah, so we'll get this mail to you, but just want you to know that we really appreciate you, and we believe that you're one of our living legends. And thank you for all you've done. So Kirk, you can take me off and let her share what share in her own way what she has for us today.
Well, I awakened early this morning. I was enthused, excited, and energized. Now I'm fired up. I'm just fired up. It's my great honor to be a part of this conversation today. I'm grateful for each one assembled, focused on engaging, expressing concerns, gaining understanding, and creating a stronger platform for authentic dialogue. And it feels good. It feels really good and noble and universal. You indeed have a mighty work before you. The good doctor said he wanted me to talk about engaging the political system to make change for Black people. And the road will not be easy. I'm a witness. Politicians propose, support, and create laws that govern the land and, by extension, its people. Broadly speaking, a politician can be anyone who seeks to achieve political power in government. And they don't usually talk about the power part, but sometimes the power's first, and that's unfortunate. And yet, politics and politicians, whether municipal, regional, national, are a microcosm of society with all the faults and strengths that come with it. They reflect strengths and weaknesses of those engaged. And while there is an expressed desire in each instance to represent the will and the desires of the larger group, of the populace, of the people in their district, in their state, whatever that might be, or their city, we all know that personal perspectives of those serving can supersede the wishes of those they represent. There's kind of an unconscious incompetence that people deviate from what they were elected to do what they want to do, what feels good to them, which may be to the detriment of many people that they are representing. And as you go forward in this mighty quest to engage those in the seats of power, you'll be required to utilize every tool at your disposal. Inspiration, not the technical ones that you usually hear about, but inspiration, intuition, improvisation, innovation, energize, to take action, a belief that change and opportunity that you are seeking is a possibility, and copious amounts of prayer. I'd like to offer a few suggestions as you commence to create your strategy, because absolutely without hesitation, I tell you, strategy is necessary when engaging in the political arena. You can have the greatest heart and the best of intentions, but if you don't have a strategy and a backup strategy and maybe a third strategy in mind, you will be defeated. And I don't mean necessarily defeated in your interaction, but you will feel defeated. It's critical that you take some time for self-assessment, some powerful truth-telling to yourself and your constituents for whom you are coming forward. There needs to be some coalition building. You can have a great idea, but as a single individual, you might as well stay home. But you have to make sure when you're interacting with politicians that there's a group that will be impacted by whatever you're proposing. Second, you must be able to clearly articulate the benefit for mainstream dominant culture. That means keep it simple. If you get too much in the weeds, they won't hear you, and they have a minimum amount of time. So when you walk in, you need to know what you're talking about and be able to articulate it in the most direct and specific ways. It's absolutely important, absolutely important. Second, you must articulate the benefit for mainstream dominant culture. I guess I'll be direct and say, they're going to ask you, what's in it for me? If I do this for you, what do I get out of it? Whether it be I get to be the one that presents it and I'm the hero, or that I impact a number of people, or it will change people's lives, or it is better for all. But they're going to ask you, they won't ask in the direct way, but what's in it for me? And when I say for mainstream dominant culture, I'm talking about white folks, because that's where we live and where we work. Many in power see it as a zero-sum game. Some speculate that if the system was to change for the betterment of Black people, that whites would suffer. If it's good for you, how can it be good for me? One of those questions. That's the unsaid one. Some of them are very unconscious in their bias. So you have to presuppose that it may, in fact, likely exist. Or worse yet, then they might have to ask, well, if I do this for Black folks, what about Asians? What about Mexicans? Boy, they're going to crowd me out of the system. You hear those kinds of things said stealthily oftentimes. If I give them this, what about me? I invite you to consider the arsenal of tools and skills and talents you possess in preparation for the challenge before you engage in a centuries-old system created by, for the benefit of, and controlled by white men to make changes for Black. And I say men in particular, because no matter who's in that system, they're usually adhering to what has been a white male way of looking at things. You'll find women that you know very well in your community that once they get in the legislature, they may still have the skirts on, but they're operating with the mindset that fits in that environment. Sometimes we are co-opted after we get there. It's a difficult thing to maintain your self-esteem and your way of looking at the world. That language can be threatening to some, helping change things for the benefit of Blacks. We've come together today to build upon the strength, the wit, the wisdom, and the genius present between all of us on this call today. We are courageously and compassionately connecting with one another, and truthfully, we're speaking some of those truths that we don't usually talk about in integrated culture. We are here to interrupt a growing atmosphere of inflamed hatred, separation, and division in our cities, our states, and our country. We are here to investigate our role in bringing about change, collective change that is a benefit. Listen, if we are benefited, it can benefit white folks too. We have to look at the and both instead of the either or. If I lift you up, it also lifts me up. We have to think in those terms. We must be purposeful, because there's stuff out there and it will show up if we're not vigilant and careful about what comes out of our mouths, and if we're not careful about what we're listening to. We must intentionally turn toward one another to interrupt domination, extraction, and violence that is perpetrated on Blacks on a daily basis. Yeah, sometimes we do it to ourselves. We must prepare to engage the political system. Even to get in the door, to gain an audience, we must prepare ourselves. That's what I'm talking about. Direct, specific, and straightforward what you want to talk about when you want to even make an appointment. First things first, and I mean this, in my 10 years in the legislature, just as the good doctor started our morning with prayer, that's what I do. When I get in my office, I take a deep breath. You know, after I've walked up the stairs and I'm ready to fight the lion, I have prayer. Call on that power greater than yourself and pray for his guidance, protection, and that you lean not to your own understanding. That is so important. Now, I'm not adept at recalling scriptures. I've been around a lot of preachers in my life, great-grandfather, uncles. I married a man that's a preacher. It's been a long haul around folks, but I'm not great at just pulling scripture out of my head. But it's important. It's important that we stop for prayer. My husband became a preacher shortly after our marriage, and I've always wondered, did I drive him to be a preacher, or did I make him run to being a preacher? Whatever it is, it's a blessing. But it was on the floor of the Idaho State Legislature, surrounded by men and women of good intent in the midst of debate, that I stopped for a moment to calm myself, because the conversation was the precursor to critical race theory. And it was saying, I don't see Black. For example, when I look at Senator Buckner Webb, I don't see Black. And in the midst of debate, I had to stop for a moment, calm myself. Thought of Ephesians 5:10-18. It came to my mind, put the whole armor of God, put on the whole armor of God, that ye may stand against the wiles of the devil. And I stood up, and in part of my discussion, I said, I am a Black woman. I am proud to be a Black woman. I am the child of Black people. Black is not pejorative nor negative. I want you to see me in the wholeness of who I am, because if you fail to do that, I know we're not operating as equals. And still, people kept picking up the phone. I see you as a person, calling me off the floor. It's an interesting way, the way that folks want to deny who you are. Suit up for risk-taking. It requires having difficult conversations. It requires facing our own fears. It requires taking action. It requires interrupting or eliminating old ways. Well, if I like you, if you're my good friend, I don't even want to call you Black. Well, that's the best thing to call me. You can call me Cherie first, but no, in the wholeness of who I am, I'm a Black woman. We have our work to do too. No one can do it for us. And as you further prepare, consider what unites us and what divides us individually and the adversary. What unites us? Race, religion, country of origin, education, color, politics, income, apathy, laws, where you live, who you love, income, country of origin. I said that again. And the list goes on. Those are the things that unite us. What divides us? Race, religion, country of origin, education, color, income, apathy, laws, where you live, who you love, income, country of origin, and it goes on. So some of the same things that unite us divide us. So we get to make a decision on how we're going to respond to them. Can we use it as a unifying opportunity or a dividing one? Again, it's time for truth telling and facing our fears, a time to call upon people of conscience to condemn violence. And I'm not necessarily talking about fisticuffs or denigrating our houses or any of that kind of stuff. I'm talking about even that violence that we do through thought and through words that are hate speak. Think about that. Think about that. It's time to join together to form a mighty coalition, a mighty militia, champions of compassion, emissaries of equity, ambassadors of humanity, zealots of liberty and of justice. And I'm proud to be a soldier in that army. I talked about it over and over again till folks could even quote it for me on the floor. I'm undergirded by an understanding of our interconnectedness and inheritance of the demonstrated courageous action of those who came before us. I'm supported by committed men and women across the world, a host of individuals with powerful history of striving that ensure that each and every human is treated with dignity and respect, and I'm absolutely supported by my faith. I'm empowered by a vision for a future, not just the next generation, rather for all those generations to come, for my prodigy that won't even remember this old grandma when times go by. Truly, what we do today will set the foundation for the future. And those that came before did just that for us. We owe them a debt of gratitude by holding ourselves accountable. I leave with you Cherie's rules for engagement as you embark on your work to engage the political system and make a change for Black folks. And it's really simple. I like 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 1 is stand up, commit to excellence, be loyal to yourself, be loyal to the group, be loyal to the mission, to us, to Black people. Ensure that yours is an attitude that epitomizes distinction. Number 2 is to show up. Show up. It sounds so easy, but show up. A lot of people are armchair quarterbacks. Show up. Get up out of that couch. Be there, attending fully and dependably, participating and representing. Number 3, find your voice. Use it effectively. Speak plainly and concisely. Think, speak, walk, exhibit excellence and collaboration. And number 4, sometimes this is a challenge for me. I work on it daily, and my husband prays for me about this one all the time. Know when to be still and listen. Know that listening is not only an art, but it's a leadership skill. It's a humane thing to do. It builds coalition. It builds camaraderie. Because if I'm talking all the time, I can't hear what somebody else is saying, and I might miss that nugget that enables us to move to the next step. And number 5, make up. Know when to be still, and here you go, and to listen. Listens, I think I said that just now. Okay, let's go to makeup. Makeup, reconciliation will be necessary. There are no perfect relationships among human beings. Demonstrate compassion. Humanity cannot survive without it. Number 6, re-up. Periodically take time to recommit. Review your purpose, then seek clarity and obtain good counsel as needed. Examine yourself. And number 7 is look up. Connect with that power yet again, that power greater than yourself. Seek strength and guidance. My road in the Idaho State Legislature has been a gift. It has been a growing experience. It has been a challenge. I have learned so much. I believe that I paved the way. There's a gentleman in there now who is also, I brought him in to sub for me. And now there have been 2 Black people in the Idaho State Legislature. And I think that has helped us grow and develop as a state to be open to look at that and to receive that. And yet as we get into the critical race theory thing, it's been really rough for this young man. But we have opportunity and we must speak up for each other. so that we can have wholeness in our body. With that, good doctor, I turn it back to you.
All right. We want to thank you so much for your 7 powerful items of wisdom for us. And what we will ask our audience to do, to be thinking about any questions that you may have for the senator. But now we're going to go to a brief commercial break, and we'll be right back with questions for Senator Buckner Webb.
I am the Liberation Movement.
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 I am the Liberation Movement. My name is Dr. Sidney Freeman Jr., and I am the Executive Director and founder of the Liberation Movement, which is a 501c3 organization that works with those who are liberated and seek to be liberated psychologically, socially, and spiritually through educational initiatives. To continue to provide the high-quality programming such as Saturday Soul, we need your support. Your consistent monthly investment in the movement will allow us to continue to expand on the excellent work that is already started, such as decolonizing the Black mind curriculum that is already in development. So your gifts of any size via Cash App, Venmo, or PayPal would be a blessing to the advancement of this ministry. Thank you in advance for supporting and joining the Liberation Movement.
Please remember to join Sydney, me, and our special guest today on Clubhouse at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time so we can dive deeper into today's topic. See you soon.
All right. Well, thank you again. We have a couple questions for you. So we'll just kind of start with your own experience, and then we'll ask some other questions about how to engage the political process. So, what brought you into engaging in the political process and wanting to become a not necessarily a senator, but actually go into professional politics?
I grew up in a household, my mother in particular. My dad was a really kind, gentle, go along to get along kind of guy. He'd been an athlete at Boise State University, so he was real in his comfort zone and grown up and raised here. My mother was an activist from the day I was born. I mean, by her putting the cross on the front so everybody can see it, said, "Shame on them. We've been here a year. They're late. We're not moving." I had been engaged. I picked the YMCA when I was young, and one of my closest friends' father was the executive director, because when the Job Corps first came to our area, they had dances at the YMCA, but they wouldn't let the Job Corps guys in. So, I mean, these kids are the same age, but they weren't allowed to be in. So I was picketing when I was 16. When Dr. Martin Luther King died, I was part of the first civil rights march in Idaho on the front steps of the Capitol. There were tons more police there than there were Black folks because they were worried about what would happen. So it's been in my life script to try to endow the future or disturb the peace, I guess is really what it is. That was my mom's credo, disturb the peace. And so that was the best way to do it when it came time. And someone came and asked me, do you know who'd be great to work in our area? And they'd asked me when I was much younger and I had small children and I couldn't consider it. And so that day was the right day. And I said, yeah, I'll do it.
Wow.
I'll run.
Yeah. So you said, I want to connect that to something that you said earlier about now investing in another gentleman to now be in the state legislature. Could you talk about the importance of intergenerational mentoring and empowering the next generation of those who are activists, but also those who want to take it to another level and engage in the political process?
It's absolutely critical, and it starts with our children by telling them they have the right, they have the voice, they have the power, they have the education. This young man has a law degree. He had been working all over it, but he said, gosh, I always thought maybe. And I said, come in and sit in. He came in to visit with me a couple of times. Then I said, I have to be on business travel for a couple of days. I'm going to take you to meet the people in the legislature. Then I want you to sit in my seat. Well, I can't vote. Yeah, you can vote. You'll be acting on my behalf. And so I'll show you what's coming up. And that's some people think that's risky. I don't think at all, because he's a generation younger than me, for one thing. He's the same age as my kids. Isn't that hard to handle? But he's amazing. And that's what happened when I was a child. I mean, think about in our religious environment. Each one teaches one, each one touches one, and we bring them along. And that's important that we do in the environment in which we live, not only in which we worship. And I think it's the same principle.
Yeah. So I'm looking at those 7 points that you gave us. The first one was stand up. But what I like what you did with that was you connected it to the concept of excellence, right? So you're not just standing up, but you're standing up with excellence and being loyal. Could you unpack that just a little bit more for our audience?
Preparation. Before you can stand up, there are a lot of people that want to stand up and talk trash and do all this thing. Prepare yourself. Get educated. Ask questions. Fall on your face a few times. Prepare to stand up, and then stand up and speak eloquently and speak appropriately. I don't mean that you have to have the King's English perfect, but I mean that you know your stuff when you stand up.
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about, I think we're in a unique situation where we're not in New York, or we're not in LA, or one of these big cities where there are a lot of African Americans, or we're not a dominant group in our state. Could you talk about how you've had to navigate that, how you have to navigate that differently maybe than others that may be in a more highly populated Black space?
Well, I will tell you that everybody knows who you are, or everybody calls you out. Everybody makes assumptions about who you are and what you think and what you do. And you have to tell them that I don't necessarily speak for all Blacks, but by the same token, I will stand up for all. That's important. I think we have to, one of the things that's so beauty. I mean, now this is dating myself again. We have the internet. We have all that kind of stuff. We can connect with our Black brothers and sisters in a myriad of ways that was very difficult for me. And we are accountable. So we need to get busy and make sure we are connecting. And there are a wide spectrum of folks you can connect with, but I want you to be purposeful about with whom you connect. But we have opportunities to do that. Folks do judge 3 by 1 often in this community, judge everybody by the same. My son, I grew up in a Black Baptist church that was founded by my great grandfather. We got 5 generations of us that went there. Now, one son is still Baptist. The other son has become Muslim. So he really kind of corrects them from time to time. And now he's the executive director of the Black History Museum. It's really a wonderful thing to see people come together. We have a lot from our Jewish community that also come to us at the Black History Museum and talk about what's happening there. Seventh Day, all kind of that. So it's really interesting to say that we are of every faith, we are of every profession, and we remain Black.
Yes. So thank you for that. We actually have a someone who's special that has put a comment here, Mr. Kenny Anderson. He's the director of diversity and for the, I know it's a longer title, but essentially the director of diversity for the city of Huntsville in the state of Alabama. And he's written this: the country is polarized and democracy is under attack. Legislative efforts at voter suppression and more are deeply disturbing and seem unsustainable. What do you think the end game is on this path? And he said his title is Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Well, I got to tell you, there's war going on, and for the folks that are sitting on the sidelines and being silent, shame on you. It's you've got to bring it to your state house, to your courthouse, to everything, because they are trying to silence us. And when you talk about critical race theory, they use that as a weapon here. They swear that we're trying to change history, but we're trying to bring the history that they have hidden for so many years, and they need to own it. We're not doing it just to slap them in the face, but we're trying to show reality, what we have been through. It is under siege. And I've got to say that many times, and part of it has to do with historically, we were fearful to speak out. I mean, if you look at our forefathers and mothers, you had to be careful how you walked. We need to stand up and speak up. I'm serious. We are under siege.
So with that, I one of the things that I've said on my campus, I worked at the University of Idaho, and I've said that I'm not going to take on the weight of fighting, arguing publicly about critical race theory. I said all my liberal professors on campus that say that they're great allies and accomplices, I said this is your time to shine. This is when you should stand up. Well, what is your perspective? So what is your perspective on something like that, in the sense that, yes, as a Black person, I could use my voice, but we're fighting so many fights. It's like let some of our white colleagues step up and be the face of fighting these things. So what are your thoughts?
The president of Boise State University down here in Boise, well, I mean, she went to bat like you can't believe, and they lost $1 million from their budget. And yet she continues to educate, and she does it. She's strategic. I think that's important. I think it's time for them to get up off their behinds when I say and stand up. I mean, I'm serious, and I say that without any hesitation. And it is time. It is time. I don't know how much fear they have for knowing the truth. There's fear. I mean, I think there's fear in the water. We don't want to talk about that. That wasn't me. That was them. That one. Well, I say it was me that was murdered, was hung, was lynched. Yeah, that was me. And they're going, no, it wasn't me. It's time for them to own that stuff. But I am concerned, and the legislature here in Boise, Idaho, has been very punitive about it, and cut budgets and stuff. But I'm determined that I'm just going to keep nagging until something changes.
Well, you talked about this notion of number 6 was re-up, recommit. Could you talk about that a little bit more, examining that point of examining yourself?
Well, I tell you that many Black people, even in more populous societies, we get weary of going to the store and somebody stops you when you're starting to go out the door. All those little microaggressions that happen to us day in and day out, we get weary. We get tired of being the one they call every time some Black kid gets this or some blah, blah, blah. I mean, it goes on and on and on. We get weary, and we need to take time to stop and renew ourselves, stop and get grounded, get on our knees, get with our peers, get regrounded, and then we can re-up, because it takes all kinds of, calling on that power greater than yourself and restoration, so you can re-up. You can do it in a different way. You can do it whatever way. Pray more, whatever it is. Re-up, get recharged.
So how do you do it? So we're unique in that we're in the kind of state we're in. And we may not necessarily have the large Black community in which to kind of go to. So what are some strategies that you've used, given that you don't necessarily have, when you were in the state legislature, you didn't have a peer that was African American that you could necessarily fall on their shoulder? What were some strategies that you used?
Well, I'll tell you that I have a lot of men and women friends that are not Black, that I can depend on, that I have relationship, that we have commonality in other ways. And I go to them, and part of that is how we are able to strategize together to get things done in the legislature, to get things to happen. And all I have to do, I mean, this sounds so sappy, is look at my 10-year-old granddaughter. And then I'm going to re-up every time.
Wow.
Because I'm not leaving this place. And it's pretty good. I'm not leaving this place like I found it for that child. I'm in all over again.
Yeah. When you say that, I think about your work with the Idaho Black History Museum, because I think that's a part of the legacy that you're leaving.
Yes.
You're leaving in the state. Could you talk about that process of establishing that? Because I think it's important as we talk about leaving something concrete behind for another generation. And I think about your son, and I think about your granddaughter. I see on Facebook from time to time how you're leaving, having that established is leaving a legacy. So could you just talk about that process and how you got that done?
I'm so glad. St. Paul Baptist Church had been on Broadway Avenue for over 100, a long, long time. And finally, the church outgrew the building and they were going to move to another building. My grandmother was in a wheelchair at that time, and my grandmother's pretty good at working people. And she goes, "Oh, Cherie, you can't let them tear down this building. My granddaddy and my her father and her grandfather built it. She worked me. And every day I would see her. She said, "Oh, Cherie, you can't." So I talked to a guy named Peter Peterson, who was a member of our congregation. And I asked him, is it possible for us to get the building moved? We could make the building as an artifact in itself because it's like 100 years old. What can we do? And this bold man went to the Parks Department and said, "We want to move this church into the park." Those white people nearly had a heart attack. "You mean they're going to be having revivals and stuff in here? We can't have that." And they gave him a flat no. Peter's a white guy. So Peter came back to me and I said, "No, Peter, what we got to do, we got to go back and show them what they have." So we did some Maya Angelou. I did some singing. Somebody else did some poetry. We showed them what was rich about our culture and some historical stuff. And every one of them on the board said yes. We went to the city park. We didn't have any money, though. That was the next part. So then we got a guy that my dad knew was on the Ada County Commissioners. He said, "I got some land that we're not going to be able to build on." They moved it there. We didn't have the money to move it. We went to a man that, do you remember, what was that big movie? Oh God, about the boat. And they were a moving company. He said, "I made a whole bunch of money off that one, so I'll move it for you for free." I mean, the things that happened, God was at work. It got moved. And then that was during a period that it was going to only be there for months. It was there for years. The churches were burned all over the United States. The police department put wire around it and we had not one, the only thing that happened to it as it sat there was they think it was probably like a raccoon or something, made a little hole in the part. And the guy that moved it came back when I said, "We're ready. Finally, we've raised the money." He said, "We're going to move it again for you for free." And the park said we could do it. And people all over our community said, "Let me do the foundation. Let me do the so-and-so. Let me do the restoration." It was the house that the community built. And most of them were white folks, quite frankly. And the museum opened, and it's been amazing. Sometimes you put the call out, you give the reason. That's what I said. Stand up, show up, speak up. You got to have a good, brief explanation of what's happened. And they showed up masterfully.
Yeah. That's awesome. Could you talk about this notion of coalition building? You've been talking about that in part, but talk just a little bit more about how you've been able to get white people to move, because for most of us, we work with ourselves.
Yes.
But to move things forward, beyond ourselves, what are some strategies that you've used?
Well, for one thing, the unasked question goes unanswered. My grandfather said, "If you don't ask," when I was a child, "the answer is no." If you don't ask. And that's one of the things that we do as Black people. We don't want to be beholden or ever. I'm not asking that. But if they say they don't usually are direct with that, but what's in it for you? Well, it's in it for them. That coalition, whatever you're doing it about, you have to see that part. That was one of the opening parts that I talked about. People are going to ask, what's in it for me? And if they're not tactful, they'll ask just like that. And so you can see what it is for both. Our community. If you want to bring more people in here to work, we've got this new huge Amazon thing, and you want people to work and you can't find anybody to work. We've got Micron, who's made this like a foundational place for them, like their centers. Who are you going to have to work here if they call? I mean, I cannot tell you, I spent a great amount of time after work in the legislature, answering a call from a woman that says, should I come to work there? Is it safe? My son wants to play ball at Boise State. Should he come? What's it like to live there? How much are housing? And they were people of color, not just Black people, that said, is that a safe environment? So as a part of my responsibility, and I feel strongly about that, they can go online and say, oh, there's one Black person. Okay, let me call you, and pass them on to others and share. So to build that coalition, every time you touch one, you can touch another. You can touch one, you touch another. And in doing so, you can build a coalition, but not to be fearful to go back and say, hey, look, you don't say, I did this for you, do this for me. You have a connection now. Call and ask the question. Don't be fearful to ask, because my grandpa all the time, when most kids would say, Grandpa, can I have some candy? If I asked him that, he'd say, why? Why? I had to con him. He used those words. You have to con me out of it. And so that was find a value proposition for him. What's in it for me?
So you're a woman of many gifts, and one of those gifts is music. Can you talk about how music has helped you in connecting with people, and not just from a religious standpoint or an entertainment standpoint, but I actually, you probably don't know this about me, but in undergrad, I got a part of my degree is in vocal performance, but you won't hear me sing too.
I do know.
I won't do too much of that right now. But can you talk about how you were able maybe to leverage that gift in other circles to get things done?
I will tell you, initially I separated them. I wanted such a line of demarcation because all of mine wasn't singing in church. I was also singing in joints and traveling with Gene Harris and that kind of stuff. And my mother said to me, that's the wholeness of who you are, girl. That's the message. And one of the first things that happened is someone asked me, would I do a funeral service? And I sang for that service. And I knew them in a whole different light. Music is a connector of people. People that can't even talk to each other. Music is a connector. And I don't use it lightly and I don't use it pejoratively, but music is amazing. I've been asked to sing on the floor of many states' senates, many state legislators, and in my own. And it's just amazing. Yeah. And usually I'm asked, but sometimes I offer, because it is a connector. We can all relate, even if we don't even understand the words of the song. The music has power if the person that's bringing it is congruent.
Well, one of the things that you shared was keep it simple. And those who may have some questions, please feel free to put those in the chat so we can engage her with some more questions. But this notion of keeping it simple in your message was really important. Could you talk about that a little bit more, just in the way of communicating with other groups, how to keep it simple?
I think it's really important to get to the core of your message. A lot of times we like to give a lot of flowery speech to lead up, because we're trying to stop all the negative stuff on the way. And sometimes you talk too long and then you oversell. You've heard, you're going to kill the sell if you talk too long. And you've got to be cognizant of when you've oversold. You need to watch your audience when you're speaking. You know that, quite frankly, people have the attention span of, there's an expression that they say, a gnat's something. So, so I think the quicker you can get to the message, it's important, I think. And then give your message, then allow them to ask questions and be ready for them. But specifically, I need your help to do this. my goal is to build this. This is an opportunity for us to coalesce. Then they can say, well, what do you mean? Da, 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 that kind of thing. We're making a great error with this decision right off the top. Speak, not work up to it and say, remember 20 years ago, we did this and that, and the other say, or this is going to kick our behinds. I mean, sometimes time is of the essence. Get to the meat. I don't mean you have to be an attack dog, but say it right off and allow them to have dialogue with you. And then they can feel like they have participated in coming to the absolute decision or compromise or whatever. But you need to be clear when you go in, and you need to know your audience. But most people right now in this age, it's crazy. Time is of the essence, even if they're going to go sit in their rocking chair and watch something. I don't know.
So for our probably last 9 minutes, I want to talk about, pull this full circle and talk about this higher power you've been talking about, right? You mentioned it at the beginning, how the higher power has sustained you even through tough times. Yeah. Talk to us about how that's been helpful as you've had to step out many times all on your own, right? Could you talk about the need for that and doing the kind of tough work that we're called to do, given the pressures on Black people now?
I just think that there are so many times that my grandmother used to say, I wake up and I think I can't go another further. And then I call upon Jesus, and she wasn't a singer, and she would go into song. And I mean, and the reason I use higher power so much, because people call it different things, but we can all relate unless you have no experience with it, with that power that sustains you. You wake up one morning, you think, I can't move, but surely I can. I don't think I can deal with these people one more time. And anger can be often the thing that overtakes me when I've watched some of the things that have occurred in our country in the last few years. And I'm reduced to all I can do is pray about it and cry and cry and cry and cry and pray about it. I mean, I know that there is a power so much greater than myself, and that he knows my heart. He knows what's to come. Because, boy, I sure can't handle it on my own.
When you say that, I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
When you say that, it makes me think of a gentleman. He was maybe about 2 weeks ago. He was giving a presentation based on his turning 40. And one of the things that he said that, that resonated with me was, it was one of those speeches, what I know up to now.
Yeah.
And but one of the core ideas was cry more. And it's interesting, during these times through the pandemic, I remember some challenges happening personally, and I called my friend just to say hello. I made it back to the house, had dropped my wife off at work, and as soon as I said, "How you doing, man?" As soon as he said, "How are you doing?" I broke down like a baby.
Yes.
And so
that is so powerful that you could do it with your friend. Amen. Yeah.
And so he said, let it out. And I couldn't be, and by let's say we talked for about 45 minutes. I probably about, there was 3 times where I broke down in tears, but just the importance of, I'm thinking, those of us who are quote unquote young activists, or those of us working in government that are experiencing microaggressions and
crazy and just plain crazy.
And being the first, I'm learning that that's important to have that space in which to let it out. And so that what you're saying resonated with me.
You know,
So
a song of our historical culture says, cry on just a little bit longer. Cry on just a little bit longer. There was a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So in these last probably around 2 minutes, I want to leave you with just sharing your last words with our audience of anything that you want to leave with them.
I just want to leave with you that all things are possible and that I stand with you and for you. And I'm available, by the way, if you need a call or a pickup. I'm serious. We are wonderfully blessed. We have talent, skills, and abilities. We are up to the challenges before us. I believe it from the depths of my heart.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Well, it is our honor to have had you here with us and to share your words of wisdom and insight. I'm so glad that we have this recorded so that people are able to access this. The gems that you pass down will be those that people can reference for a time to come. So we want to thank you, Senator Buckner Webb, for your enlightening presentation. And again, want to say thank you to Kirk and Composition for their audio-visual help for today's program.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman.
Yes.
Thank you
again, and thank you to the audience for being with us. I'm congratulations again, Senator Buckner Webb, not only on getting what this award, but that this new park downtown will be named after you.
And I'm still alive. I can't believe it. Usually I have to be dead to get a park.
Yes, we want to give you your flowers now. So we thank you for that. I just want to let our audience know that next month, on the last Saturday of next month, what's going to happen is we are going to have Kirsten Mullen and William Darity Jr., the authors of From Here to Equality: Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. William Darity is a leading economist out of Duke. And even as there were discussions on HR 40 about what reparations would look like, he is the premier academician, one that has done peer-reviewed research on the ways in which a reparations plan could be implemented. And so I ask that you mark your calendars for August 28th next month to be with us. You're going to be enlightened by what they share. I think it's really important right now to have that conversation about what reparations will look like. When I was in undergrad, I remember that was like crazy talk to talk about reparations, and it's been interesting that that conversation now is on the table. So want to see you there, and then in a few minutes, let's jump on the Clubhouse so we can talk a little bit more about engaging the political process to support the Black community. With that, you have a wonderful rest of the afternoon, and be blessed.